I rise to support this bill, which will make a real difference in improving detection and treatment of rare cancers. And we heard at second reading really moving contributions, particularly from my honourable friends, the member for Mitcham and Wardham and of Calder Valley. And with the permission from my honourable friend, member for Edinburgh South West, I want to take this opportunity to press the Minister also on research into lobular breast cancer, echoing the comments that have just come before. 22 people a day in the UK are diagnosed with lobular, which so at 30, I think, in 2000, it would be outside of the scope of this bill. Though with a UK population of 70 million, 22 a day would be popularly deemed as rare. And more importantly, it has unmet clinical need, and that's what really matters here. Lobular breast cancer was first identified as a separate type of breast cancer 50 years ago. And while breast cancer survival rates have generally improved, research specifically into lobular has been rare. It's been grossly underfunded, and 50 years after its discovery, the basic biology of the disease remains mostly unknown. And this has led to two effects. Firstly, it's difficult to detect. Its web-like structure means that it doesn't have the typical lump, and so it often spreads before it ever gets detected. And secondly, there's no bespoke treatment, so doctors will throw the kitchen sink at it, radio, chemo, and hope for the best. Scientists say a treatment for lobular can be developed. The only reason it hasn't been has been lack of funding for research. So in May 2023, Dr Susan Michaelis, who had been diagnosed with lobular 12 years earlier, launched the Lobular Moonshot project. One of the Moonshot campaigners is my constituent, Katie Swinburne, a mother of three and a popular local school teacher. I met with Katie recently in her home, along with Susan and her husband, Tristain Lorraine. Susan had deteriorated since we met on Zoom and explained that her cancer is terminal, that it's too late to save her, but she had a determination to spend her last years campaigning for change. We hoped that she would have years to come. Katie, however, still had a hope for treatment and a cure in her lifetime. And she hopes to see her children grow old. She hopes to carry grandchildren. This coming Monday, as has been said already, we were due to meet with the Secretary of State to press the case for £20 million for the Lobular Moonshot project. That's just £240 for every person diagnosed. We will still press ahead with that meeting, but sadly, 2 days ago, on Wednesday, the 9th of July, Dr Susan Michaelis, the founder of the Moonshot project, sadly passed away, 14 years after her initial diagnosis. She died peacefully at 5 p.m, proudly wearing her Lobular Moonshot project t-shirt. She was surrounded by her husband, Tristain Lorraine, and some close friends. The Lobular Moonshot project is the most bipartisan, politically supported campaign in the nation right now. 370 MPs across this House, across all parties, have called on the government to fund this vital research. During her 14 years suffering with this cruel and brutal illness, Susan was given 8 different forms of breast cancer treatment, but none of them were able to stop the disease progressing. None of the treatments she received were based on the basic biology of lobular breast cancer, because, as I've said already, this has not yet been explored. Susan and a team of women campaigning who've been touched by the disease have already raised £125,000 in the last couple of years to set up the infrastructure to carry out this research at the Manchester Breast Centre, led by Professor Robert Clark. Her remarkable campaign has touched women across the country. If I may, Manda, just a few comments about Susan. As a young girl, she always dreamt of being a pilot, but there were few opportunities for women to become commercial pilots in Australia at the time, so she completed a degree in marketing and saved up the money to become A private pilot. After teaching people to fly, she finally became an airline pilot, starting off in the challenging Northern Territory of Australia, flying to remote communities. In 1994, when she was 32, she started flying the British Aerospace BAE 146 and immediately noticed a strange smell in the aircraft. The breathing air supply was being contaminated with jet engine oil decomposition products. Despite being told there was nothing to be concerned about, she suffered increasing health effects from these exposures, and 3 years later, in 1997, collapsed after a flight. She felt she was having a stroke. She never flew as an airline pilot again. 3 years of exposure to a complex mix of chemicals, including organophosphates, carbon monoxide, and endocrine disrupting chemicals, had seriously impacted her health, and she lost her airline pilot medical certificate. 2 years later, she was partly responsible for an Australian Senate carrying out a year-long investigation into the problem. They concluded these chemical exposures were impacting flight safety and crew and public health. She was determined that the aviation industry should resolve the problem, so she undertook the first ever PhD into the subject and later qualified as an air accident investigator. She published numerous scientific papers on the subject, briefed airlines, oil manufacturers, governments, and countless others on the topic. In 2007, 10 years after her first flight as an airline pilot, Australian Senator O'Brien revealed a secret agreement between British Aerospace, the aircraft engine manufacturer, and 2 Australian airlines, in which a large sum of money and aircraft parts were given in a settlement for problems relating to oil contaminating the breathing air supply on the aircraft model she flew. After her injuries sustained as an airline pilot, Susan completed a half Ironman triathlons and became the first Australian to receive the British Citizen Award for her and Tristan's work on aviation safety. Last year, a rose named after Dr Susan named the Dr Susan Michaelis Rose was launched by Harkis Roses at the Chelsea Flower Show. Susan has appeared or been portrayed in numerous documentaries and films. She will be greatly missed, but the campaign that she founded will move on. Thank you.